Hello, ladies, gentlemen, everyone. Dominic here with Marketing Hot Takes, the initial first ever episode of all time. Very excited. Today we have Brian Aldrich with us, a digital marketing agency owner at Evida Strategies. He's been doing this for 14 years. Brian was recently the Chief Strategic Officer, the CSO at one of the biggest ad buying agencies this side of the Mississippi. So, very excited to have you here, Brian. How you doing
Thanks,
today?
Dominic. Thanks, Dominic. Glad to be here. It's a lot of fun just to get on these and talk nerdy digital marketing things with people. Doing great.
Yes, sir. Yes, sir. So I know you must have a lot of things on your mind, a lot of strategies and approaches you're, thinking about doing as you get rolling with your own company. So, kind of open up the floor to you. Kind of what's exciting you today in marketing? What's your hot take?
Yeah, I'll jump into my hot take, but first I'm gonna flip it on you. Surprise, flip
Oh,
it on you and ask me
oh,
your hot take.
oh.
A lot of people might not know Dominic's been around a lot in the Portland scene, e-commerce, design, digital marketing. So I'd love to hear kind of first on your side, what's top of mind and what you're hearing out in the ecosystem that people are caring about.
Oh, well, sir, that is a surprised me with that one. Okay. What am I working on? What is my hot take? Well, so I'm the director of partnerships at Data Speaks. We are an ad measurement platform, so we help mid-size e-commerce brands figure out how much money their ads are actually making. And my hot take is that today, most high-level marketers are not well informed on the best processes, the best way to measure the revenue of their ads. That's my hot take. So, and this is surprising. So I'm really like in on this one particular niche. I've been studying that closely. But I haven't been in marketing as long as most of the people I bump into, and I'm kind of surprised at how few people understand what media mix modeling is, what the different ways of attribution are. Um, and yeah, it's pretty exciting. It's really exciting and surprising and kind of cool, to be at the early adopter phase of some stuff that's working. And because this is a thing where machine learning has really changed the game.
Yeah, yeah, it definitely has. And it is a really old concept that's now been brought back into popularity, with iOS changes years ago, kind of causing tracking issues with Meta, and all of a sudden people being like, whoa, what happened? Like all of this, what I used to call monopoly money and my attribution, it's like now gone. How do
Yeah.
I how do I actually evaluate what's affecting everything? I'm guilty of this because I've been in the industry for a long time, but
Hmm.
years ago, we would explain people investing in digital, like, hey, you actually can track what your, investments do. So like, what's your investment on TV? What's it on radio? Well, I can show you spend $1, you get 5 back. Invest more here. Dump, 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 right? That was
Right.
the big thing for years and years. We kind of got ourselves into trouble because we forgot, sort of in a way of justifying ourselves, we forgot, hey, it's marketing. Like, don't
Right.
forget it's marketing, right? Just because we can track so much doesn't mean it's not marketing. And then so when all these tracking, like cookie, other issues started popping up, a lot of digital marketing had to kind of take a step back and get back into, well, yeah. It's trackable, but also it's marketing. You can't completely put it all on paper. How do you talk about word of mouth? How do you talk about when somebody saw an ad and used it on two different devices later that they don't have the link
Hmm.
between those
Hmm.
for the personal identifiers? And it's like that concept kind of got lost for a while. And media mix modeling is a great way that's been reintroduced to kind of see how can I look at overall effect on the business of different marketing channels and really understand like lift or impact of different channels. So I think it's fascinating. I'll give you a hot take of mine. I agree
Yeah.
with you.
Yep.
I agree with you, and I'll tell you a story. Back in the day, I think I might have told you this before. Back in the day, I had a very, very large client, and what they would do is they'd take all of the pixel data from all of their agencies, and they would add that up, and whatever the total number was, they would take that number and they take the overall website revenue and whatever is left would be direct traffic. And so sometimes they would have negative direct traffic revenue because,
Mm.
4 or 5 vendors would be taking credit for the same sale, with
Yeah.
all the remarketing and affiliates. So that's like an egregious example years ago. But today, source of truth, I think, is so important, which is what can I look at and trust at as a business to
Mhm.
understand how I should be allocating my market budgets and what should get credit. And
Right.
MMMs are great ways to kind of develop a source of truth using a lot of data and try to put down the impact for those channels. So I think that's
Yeah.
great. Hot take I will say is I heard recently that one of my friends was doing advertising for somebody doing connected TV, and they were going to pull back because of the performance impact, through trackable pixel data, and the client wasn't very happy. But then they found out through their MMM that they actually were seeing a ton of sales through Amazon through
Mm.
connected TV because they're able to connect kind of those impressions, and engagements to the actual Amazon sales. So it's not
Right.
always on your website, it's sometime in your kind of other channels like Amazon. And that's something I know that you guys do at Data Speaks too. It's holistic, right, across all those different channels.
Yep. Yep. Yeah, exactly. Yeah, I mean, you got to have all the data in one place to properly assess it, right? And yeah, things interact. So like a lot of people could be finding you through Amazon ads and then choosing to, purchase through your website because they don't like Amazon, for example.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah.
And
Or
so,
if you're a wholesaler, right, and you sell your brand that wholesales too, hey, every dollar you invest in your business, how many dollars is going to your website and how many dollars is actually going through Macy's or other types of resellers? That's all
right,
always something that's an interesting, like, additional analysis too. So yeah,
right.
I'd agree. It's definitely been around for a long time, but still it's surprising, a lot of people struggle with how should I set my goals? How should I track? And, this new framework that's emerged, which is, MMM attribution platform, some kind of tracking that way, and then lift studies. And that's something I know that you guys do all in one package, which is unique for sure for
Yep.
a platform.
Yep. Yeah. Yeah. So here's a question for you. So, uh, tell me your perfect client comes around for the work you're doing right now. What are their problems, and how do you fix them? When you fully have free reign to do everything as you see best. Kind of tell me the story of that.
Yeah, I think, perfect client is looking for growth. I think obviously everyone's looking for growth at all
Sure.
times. So there's a lot of
Sure.
perfect clients out there.
Yeah. Yeah. Yeah.
But they're really looking for ways to grow and then trying to figure out maybe they've tried to grow before or they're scratching their head on their current, way that they're doing things and they want to try to dive deeper and see if we can find some efficiencies that will allow us to reallocate budget or find some, additional more complex adjustments that kind of boost performance. So I think kind of people that are looking for growth or lead generation clients that are looking for lead quality improvement.
Mhm.
And usually we do it by starting, asking that question, hey, what is your source of truth? Let's start there. Like, how are you
Yeah.
actually measuring success? And then usually
Mhm.
I like to walk through like, are you separating out like, do you have a new customer acquisition strategy? Like, is this just a goal that your marketing department or your CFO put in front of you? Or do you actually have a specific goal for a new customer acquisition? Like, what are your goals?
Yeah.
How are you measuring them currently? And then kind of look into the channels that people are, doing advertising in. And that's even if they're just bringing us in for like a paid search, audit or consultation in that area. You still want to take a step back because it's all connected, right?
Right.
You drive traffic through CTV, all of a sudden connected TV, you're seeing more branded searches. You make an on-site adjustment, all of a sudden your conversion rate drops. You add more product that has a higher AOV, all of a sudden that changes your performance through different channels. So trying to understand that larger ecosystem and then figure out how it plays into the specific area that you're putting together.
Yeah.
And then, if we're talking, in the like paid search area, really just diving through the account, starting with tracking. I think tracking is so important. The
Mhm.
signals that you're feeding into your accounts are one of the most important things now. I'd say the most important, because if you've ever had your conversion tracking be wrong or drop
Hmm.
off, you pretty soon find out that they're very important.
Yep.
Um, and especially since the whole industry has moved to more automation across Meta and Google. And what I mean by that is not only automation, like let's look at your website and come up with keywords and ads that you should show for, but also just the bid automation, where it's looking at different users and searches that are happening and bidding up and down based on a lot of different variables in the back end. Um, because that behavior exists, it means the machines need more and more quality data to make better decisions. Otherwise, they'll make poor ones. So I think it's really assessing those, like the core like pillars of an account, like tracking, looking at all the signals, audiences, trying to figure out what structure you're using, that kind of
Hmm.
stuff. And then the other factors like, what are you doing from a website perspective? Are there areas that can improve that then would help your paid efforts? And then one other step is like, how are you measuring everything and what are your goals? Do we need to talk about different goals and different, metrics that we should be reporting on for non-branded or branded? And what does that look like? So that's kind of how
Yeah.
I usually go about it.
Right. Right. So, how good of a job is your average business doing? Let's say like a 10, $20 million kind of mid-size ARR kind of business, like a decent sized business. How much money are these people on average that you see leaving on the table, or how sophisticated are their systems?
Yeah, I think to be honest, it's all over the board. I've worked with some of the largest companies that had the absolute worst dumpster fire stuff that they're doing because they could afford it, right? They didn't know,
Yeah.
but they didn't care, right?
Right.
The agencies they're working with were like, hey, what if we waste like 300 grand? Like, if it's
Yeah.
less efficient, it's less efficient, like we have marketing budgets, it's not a big deal.
Right.
Whereas I've seen some small companies where it's like they're just so desperate over each dollar that they're like beating up their agency constantly, and so maybe they have some better stuff or not. And there's a wide variety of experience across the industry working on these accounts, and agency sizes, so I think that factors into it.
Right.
Mid-level accounts usually are doing a lot of like right things. There's usually some lurking challenges, things that they're not feeding maybe appropriately, maybe some shopping feed optimization they should be doing, or, codes, that kind of stuff. And then a lot of times they're either in a structure that their agency believes will lead to success, or someone in-house is following two or three different agencies and trying to like put together a strategy. And so, either one of those can mean that it's a very good strategy, or it's a unintentionally misguided strategy that um, just doesn't have quite the level of, experience across working across a lot of accounts to see that, hey, I've seen this 4 or 5 times. You should make this
Mhm.
adjustment here. It's kind of learning, trial and learn, that kind of stuff. So I know
Yeah.
that's kind of a generic answer. It depends, right? But
Yeah. Right. Right. Right.
hopefully some good stuff around it. I'd say a lot of them don't understand goals. Like they're really
Mhm.
trying to figure out source of truth and goals, and partially it's usually because of how the leadership is working across those brands, where things are either being dictated down to them, where they're like, hey, here is your budget, or here are your goals, here's how we're evaluating anything, and they don't have the opportunity or the framework to educate up why they should look at it differently.
Yeah.
um, or maybe a tool set that they just don't have a tool set. They have to use platform data. Their company doesn't want to invest in attribution or MMMs or anything like that, or doesn't
Yeah.
understand why it would be valuable. And so they just kind of keep going on. That's pretty common, I think, as well.
Yeah. 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 So people are all over the place. What are some examples of answers to the question, what's your source of truth?
Yeah. There's a lot of answers. We'll go with the one that I mentioned before, is whatever my platforms say, the
Yeah.
platform pixels say. For
Yeah.
advertising, that's a source of truth. It used to be everyone would use, for the most part, Google Analytics as
Yeah.
source of truth for at least the holistic website, with some caveats, with GA4 and just a lot of the challenges with pulling basic reports and distrust and data not pulling through as frequently. That's kind of opened up a whole new ecosystem and a question mark for like, should I use something like an MMM? Should I use Triple Whale? Should I use another third-party provider?
Hmm.
And so I think since that point, I've seen more responses for what my source of truth is. I'd say it's usually a if we're talking mid-sized business, it might be a proprietary in-house solution like that they
Hmm.
created some time ago. It might
Hmm.
be maybe like a decade ago, who knows?
Yeah.
It might be Google Analytics in some capacity, but they realize that they don't know how to track meta. And so
Hmm.
they've made up kind of a way to deal with mid to upper funnel and
Hmm.
still use Google Analytics.
Right.
Um, or they're using just a combination of like various forms of um, technology attribution platforms. I'd say I run across less that are using an MMM probably than probably more of the like medium, the larger size businesses have fully moved to that. Some of the
Hmm.
middle sized is still unsure. They don't know if they have enough data, or they're not educated enough on like whether they should make the move to that or not.
Hmm. Yeah. Yeah. So, who would you give me kind of like yeah, what size should a company start using an MMM at? Or, kind of give me some of the tiers of tools businesses should be implementing.
Yeah, I think I'm gonna go back to it depends. But
Yeah.
I should flip this on you and ask you, being
Sheesh.
a company that deals in attribution exclusively. I
Yeah.
think, it's a good question. I think you should start exploring it kind of in that mid-sized level. And I think there's a lot of solutions that you can start the conversation with to understand, is my data at a point? Do I have enough data? Would it make
Hmm.
sense for me to do an MMM? What's my budget? What can I afford? That kind of stuff. And what are like multi-touch attribution, maybe like midpoints that make sense. If maybe not Google Analytics because of the issues I said, but is there like, for example, you guys have multi-touch attribution, Triple, others have multi-touch attribution. Maybe there's a middle point that you go to.
Hmm.
Um, but if you don't have executive buy-in, at the end of the day, I think that's an important conversation to start having, is getting that together, that educational material on what is an MMM, what are the values of having it.
Hmm.
Obviously, if you don't do a lot of marketing, you probably don't need one, because you
Yeah.
don't need to understand your marketing mix as much. It's, if you're not doing a lot of marketing, we should talk. I think you probably have some opportunity.
Yeah.
Still a fair amount of businesses out there.
Right.
But yeah, I'd probably say it's going to depend, but it's going to depend on how much you're spending, especially in mid to upper funnel, and what kind of your budgets are in the um, how your education of your executive staff is.
Hmm. So this is sort of a selfish question. I'm super curious about being in MarTech sales. Tell me a bit about your experience of all these people reaching out to you, making all these claims about the sweet tools they have for you. What's that like for you? What's your experience like being sold tools?
Yeah, I mean, it's probably the same thing like all the brands out there watching this talk about digital marketing agency. They're having
Yeah.
PTSD with, all the people that are calling them up every day or sending emails about how they're going to magically improve their performance and do an audit
Yeah.
for them, which is
Yeah.
true about me, but none of the other ones, just to be clear.
Yeah. Uh-huh. Uh-huh.
um, yeah, I think honestly, it's just tough working through the noise, and specifically in the space of tracking and MMMs. It's relatively new, and so there's still a lot of question marks on what are good players and what are not good players. And there are a lot of people that pop up. And the concept of MMMs, you know, understanding what should be how you should deal with attribution and like what's the incremental lift from different channels. There's not necessarily a one size fits all glove that every time works. I know you guys put together specifically as part of your pitch is that you put together different models for everybody.
Yeah.
Um, and that's kind of a challenge from people that have come from a Google Analytics attribution background, which is like, hey, I see this, I implement the code, it's working right, here's who gets credit, right? And
Mhm.
so moving into an like more, MMM style naturally opens up a lot of diversity in like what you're going to get. So people
Right.
might say we see a left or don't see a left. Is that accurate? Is it not? You have to kind of go through case studies and try to understand who's been using it, and then also, get some recommendations from other people. So I'm a little hesitant. I think I don't hear as many MMM companies reaching out. Could just be me. But I think in attribution in general, there's just so many players in the space, and it
Yeah.
becomes a question mark of how do you really trust that this is the one that's going to be driving true success? And that's why I really like how you guys have outlined how you compare up to some of the different, large platforms and really what you're doing differently, and when it would be a good fit to use you versus another person. You have kind of those type of
Yeah.
comparisons. So I like businesses that are transparent in that way.
Yeah, yeah, appreciate that, man. Definitely, I see value, and I try to, educate people as much as I can, right? Where a lot of companies are just kind of giving you these vague benefits, like, do you want more revenue, this or that, but they're like not actually teaching you anything. They don't tell you what they do, and so, yeah, I agree. That should kind of be the goal, right? Like, letting, educating people, like making it clear who should use it, why, and like how it actually works, right?
Yeah, yeah, and then education, I think, is given this stage and where things are at. I think education plays a big part of it because you're also just trying to help people understand why they should actually even care about this
Yeah,
type of attribution and how it can influence things.
right.
So I think that's a valuable way of approaching it.
Yeah. Yeah, also interesting to hear that there's, so many attribution tools, but you haven't heard a lot from MMMs necessarily. I know Zeke, our founder, said one time, I was like, when I was learning coming on, I was like, do we do the, MTA? Like, are we showing customer journeys? And he just said, like, no, we don't bother with that. Like, that's not actually that insightful compared to other things we can do. But we can do that anytime. It's super easy, right?
Yeah,
And so it's like, could probably vibe code right now, like, hey, input all of these data sources, map customer journeys, and then allow me to flip through some different value assigning scenarios, right? And
yeah,
so it would make sense that, there's a ton of people who have built that by now. Because it is still a huge improvement, right? For people who maybe were just listening to the revenue platforms reporting, right? All the data is still siloed. It's a huge step to get it in one place. At least have your correct total revenue to assign.
yeah,
Um, but yeah, with MMM, as he always said, like this has just taken, this has just been hard. Like it's been really hard to do. Like it just keeps taking longer than I thought. And so it's I feel like it's in a space like if you could build, let's say you could build a good car engine, right? You're a company that's got a good engine. Well, it's like, okay, what's going to stop somebody else from coming up with a good engine? Like nothing, but like just good
yeah.
luck, dude. It's not easy.
No, it's definitely not easy, especially with just how much data has to be ingested and basically the analysis that has to be done. The secret sauce on the analysis. I was at a
Mm,
meta event, kind of for large agencies last year. They were talking about this concept, really kind of introducing the framework of this triple attribution source, basically
yeah,
triangulating your performance based on those three things. And even they were talking about, hey, you have a data scientist run three times, run an analysis, you might get complete on the same set of data. Three different data scientists might come up with three different, completely different, performance
Hmm.
recommendations. And so it is like it's a difficult thing to put this, put it together. But once you get that secret sauce and you can start seeing that there is like across multiple client sets, like, hey,
Hmm.
we're seeing this, we're seeing this, we're seeing this. Okay, these factors are playing in and allowing, like, contributing to success. Then I think it opens up doors for you to have more conversations with companies. And that's kind of what I'd say the argument versus like what you were saying before is the average e-commerce company. Some of
Hmm.
them, they're just not seeing, like, they're not working with somebody that's looking across multiple accounts. And so they're like, if they were to create their own MMM, there's their data scientists going after it and trying to learn. But when you have multiple client sets or you've worked across, a lot of different areas, you can just identify, oh yeah, yeah, don't chase that rabbit hole because like every other client, this is how it works. Okay. Like these things are important. This one probably can get deprioritized. Here's why that might be a data issue, that kind of stuff.
Hmm. Hmm. Yeah. So we're about time here. I'll just ask you one last question. Tell me a little bit more about who should reach out to you. Like what's the situation there, and maybe even who like shouldn't reach out to you. Give me some obviously everyone wants growth. And you're at a level you can help, just about anybody, but give me specify that for me a little bit.
Yeah, the previous agency I worked through was I always tell everybody you work with anybody. It was, mom and pop dog
Right.
breeders to multi-million dollar brands. And really my goal is to focus a little bit more, have a more hands-on curated approach. And it's going to be focused on medium-sized brands that are hoping to grow, either in the e-commerce space, like I said, trying to look for growth and find those unique opportunities inside their ecosystem to help push for growth, as well as lead generation, looking for lead improvement.
Hmm.
Within that, I've worked a ton in the retail space. I've worked with thousands of customers. As I was bubbled, a lot of the issues would always bubble up to me on clients of all sizes. So I work with all kinds of different areas, but a ton in retail. So I think, if you're a retail e-com brand, uh, you're just getting out into, direct to consumer, or you've been doing it for a long time, reach out. Who I shouldn't reach out to me probably.
Hmm.
Some of the service industries, the lead space, basically a lot of those industries that have there are agencies that focus specifically on real estate, right?
Yeah.
Go talk to there's some good people. You can reach out to me and I'll connect you with them. It's not
Yeah.
my bread and butter. I want to be really good at what I do, not kind of good,
Yeah.
And so really
Yeah.
focusing at those areas in the kind of mid-sized brand. I
Hmm.
can work with very large brands. There's no problem with that. I've done it a lot in my career. But probably
Hmm.
my like ideal customer is that mid-sized customer, kind of like you guys, helping them
Yeah.
grow.
Yeah. Yeah, I'll add on to that question a little bit. Tell me a little bit about what's kind of the culture that you bring or that you like to participate in.
Yeah,
What's the yeah, go ahead.
Yeah, I think from a client standpoint, trying to make it collaborative from a like team and a house side perspective. I'm really about finding all of the little things that help contribute to success in accounts. So asking why, hey, my performance is down, why? Creating a culture of learning and curating that like creativity and enjoyment of like diving through, finding things, fixing them, and winning for customers. So that's a lot of what I did at my previous agency. Work's work. You can't get around that, but you should be able to have fun while you're doing it if you're the right type of person that really enjoys this space. And you should be able to take that and be passionate about it and dive into your client accounts and create a good experience for both sides. So that's kind of what I'm about creating.
Yeah. Yeah, yeah. Yeah, beautiful, man. Well, I think anyone who reaches out to you is very lucky. As a guy who's been the brains of one of the largest agencies, this part of the country, to get your full attention is going to be a real treat. Yeah, you know what? One of my favorite kind of local marketing thought leaders, somebody who worked with you, referred to you as the smartest person that they worked with, and I get it from a couple of conversations. Really enjoyed it, man. Like I always learn a lot, and yeah, it's a really pleasure every time, man.
Yeah, thanks. It's a lot of fun, and I always have fun with you at different events and going around, and even stuff like this, just talking through digital marketing strategy. And
Yeah,
you guys are kind of at the intersection of where a lot of things are going. You've got one concept is measurement and attribution. This other concept is automation and AI, and you guys are like right in there. So you're cutting
yeah.
edge on a lot of stuff. So I think it's always fun to hear what you guys are hearing in the space and kind of where things are going from that side of things. And I'm sure uh, if anyone's out there listening, keep following because a lot of good stuff is going to come from all the conversations you guys are having. So
I really appreciate that, man. That truly means a lot coming from you. How do people get in contact with you?
you can go to my website, avidastrategies.com. Follow me on LinkedIn. That's probably the easiest way. Brian Aldrich. I used to joke it was bald rich if you put them two together.
Mm,
It was a lot
hmm
funnier before all my hair left me, but hey,
Uh,
hopefully the other part comes true as well. So
yeah,
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 so
okay.
Brian Aldrich, you can look for me
Yeah,
on LinkedIn or connect me on Vita Strategies.
cool. That sounds good. Thank you for your time, man. And we were talking before we pressed record, what am I going to do with this kind of podcast thing? And there's the angle of how can this help me build thought leadership or build an audience or whatnot. But you also reminded me of the point that I'm just learning while I'm here, like
Hey,
these are
we're
just
we're all
convers.
learning. 14 years later, I'm
Yeah,
learning on every conversations I'm having. So, like I
yeah,
said, just learned the other day about some of the lift that people are seeing on Amazon through their, MMM when they're doing CTV. Like that's interesting,
yeah,
That's the
yeah,
mindset
yeah,
you
yeah.
need to keep, when you're in this
All
industry.
right. All right, right. It's interesting to some of us. Yeah.
Yeah.
But yeah, I love it, man. What a treat to be in a business where you need to always be learning. It's changing
Yeah.
all the time. So
True.
yeah. All right.
All
Thanks
right.
again,
Well,
man.
yeah, thanks for having me.
Cheers, Brian.